I am Diane Lucas, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He is one of the creativity explorer, no other than Mr. Fredrik Haren. Welcome to Abstract Essay, Mr. Fredrik. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yes, I am. I am the creativity explorer. I've studied creativity for the last 25 years, and I've done that by interviewing creative people to try to understand the creative process. And I've done it in over 75 different countries and thousands of creatives, from dancers to designers.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much for bringing the creativity to the world. And today, let's talk about the world of creativity. Your upcoming book, What Culture Can Teach Us About Thinking Differently. So, we often think of creativity as individual artistic genius. How do other cultures define creativity? And it's more often seen as a collective, community driven process.
Well, the book is focused on what I've learned in 37 different countries about creativity. It's not specifically on cultures, because I think we live in a world now where cultures are a little bit more complicated than saying everyone in one country thinks this way. But it's a lesson in creativity that I've picked up in these different countries. So, for example, well, if you ask that a specific question, I'm guessing maybe you are referencing the chapter of North Korea, because there's one chapter
Mhm.
about what I learned about creativity in North Korea. And I need to be very clear here. When I talk about North Korea, I'm not talking about the North Korean government or the North Korean regime. I'm talking about the culture that I picked up in North Korea. And in North Korea, they look at creativity as something that we do together, not something that we do individually. They have a saying in North Korea: one piece of clay and another piece of clay, and you put them together, you don't get two pieces of clay, you get one big piece of clay. And they look more at creativity more like we look at communication. That communication is not possible unless you are doing it with another person. And they look at creativity in the same way. Creativity is something that we do together. I think it's a very healthy way of looking at it. And I think maybe the industry in our part of the world, the industry that has really understood this is the movie industry. Because at the end of the movie, they will put the name of every person who was in this movie, not only the actors and the director, but also like the first cameraman, the second camera grip, the caterer, every person who has worked in any way or form, shape or form on this movie is being mentioned at the end. Because everyone who works with movies knows that making a movie is a collective experience. And if you think about it, every creative act is that comes into the market somehow has involved more than one person. Even if one person is just writing a book, then you need a publisher and a printer and so on. So 99.9% of all creative acts are collective acts. And we should look at creativity more as a collective act. Now, the lesson here is, if we look at creativity as a collective act, who are the other people in your world that are essential for you being able to be as creative as you are, and make sure to nurture those people. For example, when I wrote The World of Creativity, I wrote that not the whole book, but a big chunk of the book I wrote sitting in a hotel room, sitting in a hotel lobby, together with my friend who was writing his book. His name is Magnus Lindqvist. And just because we forced ourselves to go there every day and write, we didn't talk. We talked 5 minutes every hour, but we sat together, and that made me write the book, and that made the book better. So that's why I thank him and many others. I think the thank you note in the world of creativity probably is over 100 people.
In the West, creativity is often linked to innovation and disruption. In other culture contexts, creativity is most closely tied to tradition, storytelling, or spiritual connection.
Yes, is it a question?
Yes, sir. Is it?
Um, I actually, you know what? I would say yes, cultures are different, but actually it's more different if you look at how industries or professions approach creativity. So if you look at a startup or an entrepreneur, an engineer, the creative process is very different from, let's say, a painter or a dancer. And so when I interview people, it's actually interesting. People are more similar based on their profession than they are based on their culture or their citizenship. I was in Bhutan recently, and I went to a web consultancy firm in Bhutan, in the capital city. And these guys were just the same as when I visited a web design studio in Stockholm or in Berlin or in Ulaanbaatar, where I also interviewed a web design company. They are just, they have the baseball cap, they have the black clothes, they have a little Star Wars figure next to their computer. You could just swap two people there, and they would just be web designers. And then you walk out in the streets in the capital of Bhutan, and you're like in Shangri-La. So professions are actually more influential on our approach to creativity than culture, I would say.
Very well said, Mr. Frederick. Very well said. In the moment of creative breakthrough, perceive different across cultures. For example, it is seen as a sudden spark of individual inspiration, as a patient process of listening and receiving wisdom from ancestors or the natural world.
The more it's not cultural, it's more, I would say, more into the personality of people. The more really truly creative people I interview, the more you start to realize, like, for example, the classical creativity book is very much focused on creativity exercises. So here's an exercise you can do, here's another six thinking hats and whatever creativity exercise. But when you interview truly creative people, they never do creativity exercises. What they're trying to do is they're trying to understand their own creative process. And they want to understand how they work and how the creative process works. So that's why my book is not a series of creativity exercises. It's a series of reflections where people are giving insights into the creative process from creative people, and to get them to then start reflecting on their own creative process. So, for example, one of the people I interview is the former minister of tourism in Bhutan, and he's a Buddhist. So he talks about creativity from his perspective as an inward journey, not an external journey. Like a lot of Westerners look at creativity as self-expression. I'm expressing myself. Look at this art piece. It's an expression of who I am. It's us showing the world what we are, who we are. But according to him, and the creativity is an inward journey. It's a journey to get to better understand yourself. And you think about it, truly creative acts always teach us something about who we are. And the good thing with this is that if you look at creativity as an inward journey, we don't really care so much about the end result. It doesn't matter if the painting looks good or doesn't look good. It doesn't matter if the song is good or not good. What matters is that you became someone else by writing that song or painting that painting. It's the process that turns us into the new version of ourselves. That is the magic. That is what we actually are creating. We are creating a better version of ourselves.
Reflections have always influenced each other. Where is the line between respectful cultural exchange, which can lead to a brilliant fusion, and cultural appropriation, which extinguishes creative spirit? Is that true?
I think we should not be afraid to be inspired by other cultures. I think the more, if it comes from a point of curiosity, because you want to know if someone is doing something better than you are doing it. And if they are doing something better than you are doing it, you want to incorporate that into how you do something too. For example, I married a woman from the Philippines. They have very different views on how to parent. They have different ideas on how to parent in the Philippines versus in Sweden. Now, by marrying her, I now get access to how they look at parenting. I can compare it with how we look at parenting in Sweden, and now I can pick which of these two ways this specific parenting situation should we use the Filipino way or should we use the Swedish way? Or maybe there's a German way, maybe there's an Australian way. If we look at being inspired by other people's or other cultures' ideas as a way of making our own culture better, there is nothing negative with it. Most people don't do that, and they don't do that because they think the way they do it in their own culture is the best. It is rarely is. It's usually someone somewhere else doing something better. There is a glitch in the human DNA that we are not better at picking up the best ideas from others, and I wish we become better at it.
Mr. Frederick, what are the most common Western centric assumptions about creativity that we need to unlearn to truly appreciate a global perspective?
Well, I guess the obvious one is the creative genius, but we talked about that a little bit. One that one maybe not the most profound one, but there is a sense in many cultures, amongst many people, especially in the West, that creativity is a struggle, that you need to feel anxiety, that you need to really, really struggle with something in order to create something. The more I interview people around the world, the more I realize this is technically not true. Of course, there's always going to be a sense of uncertainty, but we don't need to feel anxiety and depression and frustration in the creative process if we are just confident in knowing that this is what the creative process looks like. It's going to take a while to get to the destination. And I think it's, in a way, a lot of people behave like children, that in the negative sense, that if you don't get if you try something and you fail, you start crying. We should really look at creativity as a wonderful, beautiful process that sometimes takes us in a direction we did not expect this to take us, but at the end it will take us in the right direction. If we take this approach to creativity, we became much more harmonious and much more at ease. And truly, truly creative people I've interviewed, they approach it that way. Say, oh, look at this, that's interesting. I never thought I was going to end up in this direction. But let's see where we're going now. Especially for example, authors, when they would describe it as they are not writing the book, they're basically letting the book write itself, and they will just join and be on the ride and see where it takes us. It's a much more blissful and entertaining and beautiful way to live if you just look at creativity as a process and you're just there for the ride.
Many Asian and African cultures emphasizes harmony and the group. How can organizations foster collective creativity without starting individual voice, and what are the incredible benefits of this approach?
I guess in a way you can learn from Sweden in this sense. Sweden has a large amount of multinational companies, considering our tiny size, and we also have a lot of creatives that have been able to make it globally. Again, specifically considering the size of the country and that we're not a native English country, a native English-speaking country. So, what is the secret? There are many secrets, but one of them is that in Sweden we have a consensus mentality. Now, a lot of people outside of Sweden, when I go to companies, they will say things like, "Oh, we need to have more of a Scandinavian consensus mentality here," and they think that consensus means that everyone around the table gets to voice their opinion, and we need to listen to everyone, and that's what consensus means. But that's not the meaning of consensus. It's not that everyone has to say something. Consensus, the word, the etymology of the word consensus, together, sensus means to feel. Consensus means to feel together, meaning if you have a consensus mentality, it means that everyone in the group feel that they are together. That doesn't mean everyone has to speak. When you realize this, you realize that you don't have to go around the table and listen to everyone's opinion. You just need to make sure everyone around the group, in the group, feels they're part of this. And one person might not say anything until 3 months later, but then that person feels, I'm still part of this group, and I know they're going to listen to me when I speak up. So that make everyone feel they are part of the group is the key to consensus. And when you create a sense of consensus, all good ideas will be picked up because you don't judge the idea based on the person or their extroversion or their status. You just base the idea on the idea itself. But there's a culture that we will listen to anyone when the time is right.
Mr. Frederick, in a business world obsessed with data driven decisions, what can we learn from cultures that prioritize narrative, metaphor, and storytelling as a primary tools for problem solving and innovation?
First of all, I would say that I don't think the Western world is bad at storytelling. I think the best, just like, is it better to be left-handed or right-handed? Well, it's best to be both-handed. Is it better to do data-driven or is it better to do storytelling? Well, the best if you can do storytelling that includes a lot of data. That would, like, why choose between the two? Let's embrace both of them, and let's use the data, extract the interesting information. We have suddenly all this data we can have access to, but then let's turn that into an interesting story and an interesting metaphor, because that's ingrained not just in some cultures. This is ingrained in all our cultures, that we receive information in as a story. It's a very effective way to get the information into humans. So I think all cultures are great at telling stories. I don't
How
think
do
cultures become cultures unless they are good at telling stories.
Definitely. So, how do different cultural relationships with nature and physical environment shape creative expression and problem solving?
I've interviewed 1 million people. No, I haven't interviewed 1 million people. I talked about the topic of creativity to 1 million people, and I've asked them to raise their hands on different questions. I interviewed thousands of people. You ask people when they have their absolutely best ideas. There is no one answer. For example, I am an introvert. I like to sit by myself. That's why I live on a private island. So this is recorded on my island. I don't like to have neighbors. I don't like anyone coming and disturbing me unless I have agreed on it before. And I like to excuse myself from the rest of the world and just be by myself for large chunks of time. Other people need to be together with other people. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter in a cafe because she needed other people around her to get the human energy instead of just sitting at home and writing. While Stephen King sits in his attic at home and just by himself and write. So when people talk about creative environments, they usually talk about like the Google office, wherever there's pinball machines and whatever. That works great for some people. It works great for Googlers. But other people just get distracted and they don't have good ideas because they're playing pinball all the time. There is no lesson in any aspect of creativity when it comes to this is how it works for everyone. So the only question you need to answer is, what does a creative environment look like for me? In my case, it's be close to nature, be by yourself, but make sure you meet a lot of interesting people throughout the year so that you get some inspiration, but then go back and hide again on your island. So that's why I have built a geometric dome. It's 360 degrees, three-dimensional geometric sphere where I can sit and see nature anywhere I look. And I'm all by myself on this island. And I do that half of my time. And the other half of the time, I go around the world and I interview a lot of people in different cultures and different industries to get all that information. And I need that to be on and off, on and off, on and off. That is my creative environment. But for other people, that sounds stressful, or it sounds boring, or it sounds lonely. I don't care what it sounds like to you or anyone else. But to me, this is the perfect creative environment for me.
Indeed, Mr. Frederick. Many creative traditions are embedded in daily rituals. How can incorporating ritualistic elements, not just empty routines, help spark consistency and depth in our creative work?
I'm sorry, but again, I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna have to say that whatever ritual you have is the one that you should develop the rituals that you need to develop that works for you. If I would describe, I could describe creative rituals of people I've interviewed, but it would just be a random example of a ritual of that person. There's nothing we can learn from that except figure out your own ritual.
For an individual feeling stuck in their creative process, what is one simple concept or practice from another cultures they can adopt in immediate think differently?
Let's see which one I should pick here. When we were talking before, did we talk about Bangkok?
No, not
That
yet, Mr.
ah
Frederick. Tell
yes, okay.
us.
Then I will share this with you. So I once interviewed an origami artist in Bangkok. Her name is Kay, and we were talking about creative blocks because
Yes.
for some reason we just came into the concept of creative blocks. But the interesting thing talking to her was that she did not understand what I meant. She had never experienced a creative block. And then I described to her what I meant with it. Like for example, you feel like you get stuck, you can't do anything, you get frustrated. But then she said, well, I don't get frustrated. Whenever I have a block, I just stop what I'm doing and I'm saying, okay, I now have a creative block. And then she just leaves her studio and she goes out to Starbucks and she drinks a cup of coffee and she's just enjoying her Starbucks and reads a book or something for 30 minutes. And then she comes back again and then she continues. But the key here is that she never had any anxiety about it. And a lot of people, when they get the block, they get anxiety. She calls this an idea nap, just like a power nap. So when you have an idea nap, you just, if you feel like nothing is happening, just leave it, go and do something else, but do something joyful and exciting or fun. Don't and but basically her lesson is there is no need to have anxiety when you have a block, because everyone will have a block. It's kind of like it's like clouds coming in. It doesn't matter to be frustrated when you see a cloud coming in. All you have to do is wait until the cloud is gone again, the sun is going to shine. So the idea of having creative blocks without the need for anxiety is such a release for a creative person. At least it was for me. And I really encourage people the next time they have a creative block to see what happens if you consciously decide for yourself, okay, I'm going to have a block now, but I'm not going to let that stress me out.
Mr. Frederick, what is the most surprising or profound lesson about creativity you have personally learned from studying or immersing yourself in a culture different from your own?
Well, the funny thing with this book is that every one of these insights is profound for me. That's why I picked it for the book. So the example from Thailand might not be profound for you, but for me it was profound because I let go of my anxiety of creativity. Um, I really like the ones when we went to when I went to Mongolia and I lived with the nomadic peoples, the nomadic tribe in Mongolia for 11 days. And I interviewed them about how they look at life, and they describe that what they do, like a lot of people in the West think that nomad just means someone who always travels. But they said, like, we don't always travel. We live here where our village is. But every day when we wake up, we open the tent door, we stick our heads out and we say, this was the perfect place to live yesterday, but is it the perfect place to live today? And if it's not, they tear down the village and they move the whole village to an even better place. The lesson here is that a nomad means that you only stay until that place is the best place to live. And when it's not, you just tear everything down and move. One of the nomadic people said, nomad doesn't mean a movement of the body, it means a movement of the mind. And think about this. How many times in your life have you realized that you were stuck doing things that you should have stopped doing a long time ago? It could be a bad relationship, a bad job, you're living in the wrong apartment. And you go, why am I still stuck here? And the reason is because you didn't question that earlier. So I will wake up every day saying, what I'm doing, where I'm living on this island is my paradise. Was my paradise yesterday, but is it my paradise today? And then the day I wake up and say, no, I don't want to live on this island anymore. I'm going to make myself move. Every day I wake up and say, I'm the creativity explorer. I'm going to study creativity today. But I also say, is this true? Is this what you want to do? Or is this something else you would rather do? And if you ask yourself that question every day, you will transform earlier and you will grow as a human being.
Mr. Frederick, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and my book 101 review in 5th season too, comedy 101 in 2nd season, and my food 101 in 5th season as well, geography 101 in 4th season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101 love letters in its 3rd season, and my movie 101 review and music 101 in 4th season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its 1st season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Frederick, if you could have, or if you could leave our audience or people listening right now with one fundamental shift in mindset to help them embrace a more globally informed, culturally rich approach to creativity, what would it be?
I would reframe the question as to how to have a more human or humane approach to creativity, not global, because it's not a geographical mindset. It's a species mindset. The idea of being curious of all the ideas that of humanity is creating at the moment, or has created in the past, and to be open to learn from that in order to develop yourself. And that's why an explorer is such a good word. To explore means to venture into unknown territory in order to learn more about it. So where do you need to explore? And don't limit yourself to geographic or culture borders. Just explore your topic as broadly as you can.
Mr. Fredrik Haren, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Thank you.
So where do people usually buy your books, Mr. Frederick?
Well, I would say Amazon when it comes to that. The world of creativity, available on Amazon, pre-order, and just Google the Creativity Explorer and you will find me somewhere.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Fredrik Haren, because if we support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Fredrik, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing.
More to come, people. See you soon.